Welcome to the Last Buzz Podcast. What's up, everybody? We are back for the second episode of the Last Buzz Podcast, brought to you by a fake sponsor, Prime. The best hydration beverage on the market. So much potassium, Alain, you're going to ask yourself why you bought so many fucking bananas. Because all of the,
What a company.
What a company. But yes, I am your host, Glenny B, and Alain Huskanovich, a.k.a. Husky.
Right here.
We are back. Let's fucking go. Excuse my language. I don't care. Alain.
First curse of the episode right off the bat within the first minute. Before we get started, just like to remind everyone, have to do this call to actions that I Googled so nicely. Don't forget to like, subscribe to this video if you haven't already, share with your friends. Saw a little growth after the first ep. You got to shout out to all our friends.
Yeah.
So don't forget to do that. It's free, and we're going to strongly appreciate it. Quick reminder, well, maybe for some it'll be the first time you hear about it, unless you stuck around to the end of last episode. But Glenn and I, like we had mentioned, we're going to be running a giveaway once we reach our first 1,000 subscribers. So just like I said, if you don't mind subscribing, you'll enter the giveaway right away. Whenever we reach 1,000 subscribers, we'll pull the list of all the subscribers, and we'll run it through like a random selection, and then the winner will get what, Glenn?
Not a practice jersey with those horrible, weird shoulder patches, and not an authentic pro jersey because we have rent and our mortgage to pay.
Those prices are crazy.
$4.95. Come on, man. I have to feel like I'm actually Austin Matthews when I put the jersey on, even though I would never put a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey on. Even Stamkos
that's funny you say that.
Dipped.
Because apparently those jerseys too, the $500 ones, are nameless.
Oh, really?
But we digress. We will go to the second tier of the jerseys because we're not millionaires.
Yeah.
But I read about the different specifications. Apparently, those second tier jerseys are the exact same material as last year's jerseys, because Fanatics is just that great. They made the tier 1 jerseys, which are the official ones that like a player would actually use during the game.
Yeah.
Handmade in Canada. We'll see. If things change, we'll keep you guys updated. But for now, we're going to go for the tier 2. Same quality as last year, the official jersey. If you're a Habs fan, you'll be rocking that RBC Bank logo. You'll be a free walking billboard on the streets. But this is what you'll get. You'll be able to pick and choose. If you want to sponsor milk and be against Glenn, you'll take a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey.
Yeah. Oh, I'm allergic to dairy, by the way, for all of the viewers out there. If I consume dairy, I'm donezo. Alain's alone for the podcast. But I do like their new helmet ad. Shout out to Oreo cookies. Weird that they didn't go with the Christie, because Christie makes Oreo, but that would be red and white. Maybe the Habs could put that on their helmet.
Nah, Habs are too focused on banks and beer companies. So
true.
I'll think I'll remain that. Actually, also Bell, because Bell does everything. They're sponsoring
Monopoly.
half the Canadian teams. Let me ask about your week, Glenn. How was it?
Forget about my week, Alain. My weekend in Montreal. Shout out to our boy Luigi and his lovely wife Poi. They got married. Very nice venue in I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, it's Vaudreuil. You got to cross that brutal bridge that's about to snap in half. And but yeah, great wedding. And then later that night, spent some time with my parents. Went to breakfast the next day, a lunch, and then spent some time with my schoolmates from last year. We did an NHL fantasy draft, and that was a great night. And then the next day, I saw you played some golf, where I shot 100, fake 100 with a bunch of foot wedges. And then we watched some football. None of our bets hit. And then I cried all the way back from Montreal to Calgary
classic
on a Flair flight. But What about your weekend slash week?
Yeah. Well, weekend, you said pretty much about it. Shout out to Lulu. Shout out to Boy. Great wedding. It was honestly a lot of fun to be there for them. DJ Husky. I'm gonna give myself a little shout out. Played a couple songs at the wedding, so pretty proud of that. Golf, like Glenn said, shout out 100. One short of being in the top 10%. I don't know what the number is of golfers that are able to break 100. He'll soon get there. Um, yeah, same for me. Best round ever, 91. Couple foot wedges, but it
Congrats.
still counts. So yeah, I'll take it. Other than that, back to work this week, but none of that. Let's hop into the weekly news of the NHL
Yes.
this week. So obviously, still the preseason going on. A few things happen here and there. We're not going to mention everything. I'll just mention, the top ones that I purchased out with the top news of the week,
Hmm.
and we'll just share opinions and go from there.
Yep.
First point, looking at my notes here, 3 captains have been named this year. First of all, for Chicago, we have Nick Foligno. For your Bolts, Victor Hedman named captain. And for the Ducks, Ratko Gudas,
Radko
the
Gudas.
specimen.
He's a specimen, just like you, from the
Yeah,
motherland. Good.
exactly.
I'm really happy for Radko Gudas. His first, I'd say, 8 to 10 years in the league, he was sort of a suitcase. He was always
Hmm.
a good player on each of those teams. This guy
Yeah.
could throw the body. Great
Hmm.
second, maybe third pair defenseman,
Hmm.
but Anaheim, they have a lot of youth, and I feel like he's the perfect guy to lead that team to a potential
Hmm.
playoff spot. We'll get into that later, but
Yeah.
I'm really happy for him. Nick Foligno, he's given me, a smile on my face because of his scalp. Bald guys deserve to have the captaincies, and
Yeah.
yeah, similar situation to the Anaheim Ducks, the Chicago Blackhawks. They have a lot of youth, and they need that sort of veteran who's had a lot of experience to sort of pave the way for these young guys. Because the league is becoming a younger league, but you still need those important veteran guys in there. Um, Sorry for the noise if you hear it. My beautiful cat Albie just wants someone to play with. He's been alone 9 hours today, but no, priorities podcast. And lastly, Tampa Bay.
Yep.
I love Victor Hedman. He's such a great leader for this team, but I do find it a bit odd that they don't go with, let's say, the Braden Point
Hmm.
captaincy, just because he is younger. He has so many years that I'm sure he will want to spend with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And,
Yeah.
Victor Hedman, I know he takes care of himself, but how many more years does he have in the league, LA? You
Hmm.
know? What do you think of these
Yeah.
captaincies?
Yeah. Like, I wanted to know your opinion for Tampa. Like, I honestly think I agree with Hedman as an outside perspective. Like, he does bring that leadership. Like, people on the ice respect him. So, I find it's a great choice. Same thing for Foligno. I think that he's the member that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Obviously brings the experience. Has already been captain once before, and Gudas. I personally think it's a great choice, but I heard about it today. Watching some videos for the NHL 25 game release, that they mentioned that um, they were surprised that maybe it wasn't Cam Fowler that was there as a
Okay.
veteran presence. But I think that naming Gudas, like you say, like we don't know how long he'll either survive in the league or how long he'll stay. But I think that's just prepping to
Survive.
some yeah, survive in the league, kind of a harsh way to say it. But I think they're prepping for maybe their next captain already. Like if they wanted
Mm,
Fowler to be the veteran presence,
yeah.
so we'll see what happens with him. But I see like McTavish maybe taking over in the future. So
Yeah.
maybe they know that Gudas won't be in the league as long as someone might not be ready now. So probably like Foligno, like whenever he'll retire, Bedard will for sure be the captain. I'm
Mm,
assuming. So I think Anaheim doing the same thing. Taking a veteran guy, waiting for some of their leaders like McTavish. People say might be Zegras, might be Carlson in the future, but um,
we shall see.
overall, I think that was great news for all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Quick note: I want to give a shout out to Kyle Poso, who announced his retirement.
Yes.
Got his cup in his final season. I think that he was mentioning it on the Spitting Chicklets podcast that it was hard for him to stay away from the kids for that long.
Mm.
So I think that he got what he wanted. He worked his whole career towards that one goal, and honestly, I just wish him the best in his retirement.
Yeah, I'm super happy for a guy like Kyle Poso. He spent a lot of years with that Pigeon Buffalo Sabres team, and he had a
Yeah,
very weird injury. I saw, um, on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. Shout out to our colleagues, by the way. He had
yeah,
a weird injury where like someone had to adjust his neck or his like it was like in the back of his throat where this guy had to like
mm-hmm.
crack something, and just like
Okay.
that all of his migraines were sort of
Yes, yes, yes,
cleared.
yes.
And for him to bounce back, get traded to a future Stanley Cup winning team, like obviously he didn't know
I
that
know.
at the time, but massive shout out to him, and he leaves
Yep,
on top. So shout out to Kyle Poso. Best of luck in retirement, and yeah, let's move on to a
yep.
random mass signing from the Utah Yetis. That's for sure going to be their fucking name. Dylan Genther. This guy, Alain, how many games has this guy played in the league?
So
How
I
many,
was doing my little
how
research
many
before the
games?
pod, and he has a total of 58 games. 78
58?
games. Sorry, no,
78,
70,
add
78.
20.
Yeah, split across 2 seasons. He did have a good, I'm assuming, official rookie season last year, almost a points per game player. But as our coworkers were mentioning, like a lot of those young kids are getting that 8x8, in this case 8x7 deal fairly easy. He was a ninth overall pick, um, but we'll see what the future brings. I think Utah will have that cap space in the future. I'm not sure if they're still burying a couple contracts. I'm pretty sure they are, but once that contract will take into effect a couple of years, like I'm sure it won't be much, but definitely a surprising signing to read this
No,
week in the
it's
NHL for
insane.
sure.
It's insane. These young kids, like, they barely know how to run a dishwasher, and they're
Yep.
getting 50 something million dollars. Like,
Yeah. No.
yes, he was picked ninth overall in 2021, 78 games. Like, I don't know. I just don't understand why these look. I get it. Like these GMs don't want to sign these bridge deals because of the potential that these players can bring in the
Yeah.
3 to 4 year time span. But to lock in these guys for massive, averages per year, it's surprising.
Yeah.
It's a risk that I guess they're willing to take. Shout out to the owners dishing out the
Yeah.
dough. But hey,
Yeah.
we're
That's what
happy
the
for
new
him.
owners have the money now, so
That's it.
we'll see. Like the new owners for sure have the money, so we'll see how this one pans out. The second contract I want to mention this week. So you mentioned the bridge deals that are not often dished out anymore because GMs don't want to take that risk with the cap increasing. So Dawson Mercer, New Jersey Devils, signed a 3-year, $4 million contract. Um, I personally think it's a great deal for him. Um, Following his season a bit last year, so he's a great player. I think he still has a lot to develop offensively, which he
Yeah.
showed second half last year. I think, like you said, he for the bridge, I think he took some type of risk. I think it's a 3-year contract. It's not in the
Yes.
world at the 4 million because I think he will be able to hit that next like threshold in his career where in 3 years when the cap will have definitely increased, he'll be able to sign his auto ticket
Lot
on
of
his side as well and
lot of max.
just be set for the rest of his career.
Yeah. So shout out to Dawson Mercer. He's on an incredible team. So I'm sure he's just happy to be probably going to be playing second or third line there, and he has a lot to prove. And look, $12 million over 3 years, like the kid's laughing. So shout out to him. And I guess we can move on to
Hmm.
your favorite team. Some of this
Exactly.
preseason action, LA. You've watched the
Yeah.
games. Tell me how those
Yeah.
games went.
Yeah, exactly. So last year, towards the end of the season, I had stopped watching them. So I was just curious to see
Why'd you
when
stop
I
watching?
saw,
Sorry,
especially,
sorry to cut you off. Why did you stop watching them?
um, I s-
Okay.
I didn't stop. It wasn't actually for a reason related to the performance of the team. Because honestly, I think it's a very, um, like fun team to watch play every night. Like since Martin St. came in, like the system just looks great. I was playing a lot of NHL, the video game, during those nights, trying to grind the account. It was my first time back in years, so I did take a little step back. But no, since I saw that Liney was added to the lineup, I was curious to see how he would look his first game since missing almost all this the entire season last year, and he definitely did not disappoint. I took notes on both games. I'm gonna just quickly mention the second one.
Yeah.
Pretty dull game. We did win again by shutout. Shout out to all four goalies. Montreal is on pace for 82 and 0 season with no goals allowed. That might be a first in the history.
That would be an NHL
But
first.
yeah. So second game, not much. Dull game, penalties all over, and I just found like there was even more lack of cohesion within the players, which I find odd, especially coming from the Suzuki line.
Hmm.
They played the whole season together, and like that first preseason game, they still looked like they're trying to find each other on the ice. So that was kind of surprising. But
Interesting.
the first game, what a show, Glenn! Like seeing Lane Hudson just flying around the ice. Like I said, the second game was pretty dull, but the first one, like each time he was on the ice, like it might be obviously it's a bit biased because it's preseason. He's playing against players of lower caliber than him at this point. But every time, like he would make chances out of nowhere. You kind of crazy seeing him. He's not even using his feet teaks, but he's using his shoulders very well to confuse the defensive team coming into the zone or when he's in the zone. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, that Liney Calder Trophy winner. I think it's gonna be very very interesting to watch this year. Um,
Okay.
Quick, that was quickly on that one. Liney right off the bat. Um, if I had a description to say or like a comment, is
Yeah.
that based on how you describe Kucherov being that lazy player on the ice that somehow produces. This
Uh,
is the type of player I saw. He looks very lazy,
Nonchalant.
extremely tall at his 6'5", I think 6'6" height, maybe 6'4". But the way he handles the puck, the way he understands the game, it's kind of wild to see how someone that looks so lazy can create so many opportunities, whether it's in the defensive zone or offensive zone, just defensive getting out the puck. But obviously, I'm not comparing it to Kucherov and the points production that he'll
Yeah, you
bring,
better
but
not.
if he can bring that 30, 40 goals that the Habs desperately need, I think that's going to be crazy.
Now,
Um,
before you move on
yeah,
there, like
yeah,
quickly on line A, see,
yeah.
do you think the Habs fans are going to sort of let line A go? That they understand that that's his style, and that he
Hmm.
won't be the guy like hustling like crazy. I'm sure his heart rate does even reach 120 BPM. Does
Nope.
he even sweat? Now, but he's going to be producing for sure. That's just he is very talented, but I just fear that the Montreal
Yeah,
Canadiens fan base will just be a bit rattled. They're going to look at him and be like, "Look at this guy. He doesn't want to go into the corners, fight for the puck, back check to maybe prevent a goal or two, because that's a thing that I don't like about
hmm,
Kucherov." So we shall see as the
yeah,
season progresses with Line A. But hey, wish him the best.
yeah,
Hey, I spoke about Foligno and his dome. Line A is similar, barely a hairline, but he's making a
yep,
lot of millions of dollars. So shout out to him.
yeah. Shout out to him.
Shout out to him.
But I will see.
Shout out
Like
to
you
him.
mentioned, the battle in the corners. First game, he did it. Let's hope it continues through the whole season. Two more players that was important to note. Kapanen, hell of a game. I was gonna be the only one mentioning him, but all of the media in Montreal obviously picked it up.
Okay.
That guy Glenn skates so smoothly. He's so smart in the offensive zone. Can turn on the edge. Can turn on the corner like on a dime.
Nice.
Pretty impressive to see. While I was watching the game, I took a note about Dvorak. I think he's our third line center for now. Obviously, has like historical with injuries. And like
Okay.
that's what I'm thinking is like, is Kapanen maybe going to steal that role? We'll see, because he did mention that if he doesn't make the squad, he'll go back in Europe this year. So I think that might put a
Really?
little extra pressure on the Habs management to potentially keep him for now, try him out for the maybe first 9 games, and see what they'll do afterwards. Because if you go back to Europe, it'll be I don't even know if it's allowed to come back during the season, like an AHL call up, or it might just be too complicated to do with paperwork. But we'll see where that pans out. And
Yeah.
then my last one on the game was just Josh Anderson, the GOAT. Lots of effort, lots of energy,
Lots
but I
of
just
effort and
don't
energy.
know. Like, he just skates around, does his thing, and he looks like he's lost his like hockey touch a bit. Like, I remember watching him when he was on the Columbus a couple of years like ago, playing against the Habs and just burning our defense and just taking that low far side shot, low blocker. But I just don't see that anymore from him, and I hope he gets it back up. St. Louis seems to have his full confidence
Okay.
in him. So we'll see what happens. But game one,
How much?
just saw the good old Josh Anderson.
How much is he getting paid this year because of how his contract is broken down? I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, was it 8 million? That sort of range.
Oh, like actual salary? I have
Yeah.
no idea. I have to,
I
to go
think
back
this
and
year
check.
will be a bit less, but for fuck's
Yeah.
sake, like Josh Anderson, great speed, but
Yeah.
he fumble fucks it right where it matters most. I just don't
Yep.
know. He needs to take an ayahuasca trip or something to figure out his touches around the net. Pops them in,
Yeah.
like him and Gallagher. Gallagher is similar in the sense that he's such a hardworking guy, nice speed,
Mm-hmm.
but then like I don't know, like he doesn't get lucky, you know, with the shot and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
he goes in the mixer. He picks up nice goals.
Ex-
So we can move on from
exactly.
the questionable signings that Bergevin did back in the day. And
Exactly.
yeah, what do you want to talk here? Coast to coast before we go into
Coast
the
to
Central
coast.
and
Yeah.
Pacific divisions?
Yeah. Let's do our last little weekly update before we head to our predictions for the year.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So the NHL, like you mentioned, announced the return of now called Coast to Coast. I think that replaced the Frozen Frenzy that they had did a
yeah,
test for
yeah. A bit of
last
a
year.
fruity
Uh,
name, Frozen
yep.
Frenzy. They're like, hey guys, like you know, let's go with the coast to coast. It's a bit simpler. And look, we spoke off air about this. I personally love this for the league. Shout out to Amazon Prime. I believe Coast to Coast will be on Thursday nights, and they're also going to have a bunch of games on Prime Video also on Monday. But I'm really excited for Coast to Coast just because I would say a lot of fans nowadays they don't have the time to sit down and watch even one game, let alone multiple games on one night. So this, just like the NFL and Red Zone, they give fans the chance to sort of watch a highlight reel for like 4 hours. And look, NFL, they show the screen as soon as they're in the red zone, right? Hence the name. Any sort of crazy thing that happens during the game, they're going to show it. But I feel like the NHL, they can switch things up a little bit. Obviously, they can show goals, big hits, a fight. But what about a whole power play opportunity by the Edmonton Oilers? Or
Yep.
let's see how bad the Montreal power play is. Let's, you know what I mean? Like just show a bunch of different things all
Yep.
back to back to back, and these highlights could stockpile so that they have footage for 30 minutes straight, and then they shoot to an ad. Well, I don't know. What
Hmm.
do you think? You said it wouldn't really work. Please tell me why.
No, like it was funny the way you're mentioning it, because a lot of points you mentioned is the exact reason why I don't think the coast to coast will work for the NHL.
Huh?
Like you mentioned, like red zone. I think that red zone is built for the NFL because it makes sense. Two,
That's you.
two, two, two main points. It just makes sense. The NFL is pretty simple. It's a very linear game. You get your possession, you get your chance. Do you score or not? The other team picks up the ball. The NHL is a very back and forth game, as we all know. So, what are you going to show to those new fans? You mentioned the goals. Listen, if I just want to watch like a compilation of all the goals that happened in one night, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch that. That's my first point.
No, but
Second point, you
there
mentioned
isn't
also
something
what we're
like
going to.
that though. It's you
I'm
have to
sure you
watch
can find it.
10 you
I'm
can
sure
you
you
have
can
to
find
watch
it.
a 10-minute video of a specific game, whereas this it's like 4 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
Show me all the goals, potential passes. I don't know. Sorry for cutting
Exactly.
you off.
So, what you're mentioning, like the potential passes. Like, is this really what we're going to show? The potential passes, or the other point you mentioned as well, which honestly, like I had a crazy idea while walking the dog. Shout out Wally. Um, we're mentioning the power plays. We'll show the power plays, and at first, I think it sounds like a good idea. But imagine you're a new fan. You're not really into the NHL. You don't understand the game. And all that you're watching for that 3.5, let's say maybe up to 6 hours if they do the 10 p.m. games as well, Eastern time. The new fan will just watch power plays after power plays after power plays after power plays. They're gonna start to think like, is this game played 5-4 the whole time? Like this is not hockey,
Yeah.
Glenn. Hockey, there's it's kind of a chess game on the ice. You gotta hop on those opportunities. What are you gonna do? You're just gonna show up. McDavid's on the ice. Let's just show his next shift. Let's just show them the power play. I just don't think that model is built for the NHL. I think it will flop extremely bad. But like you said, shout out Amazon. I'm sure Amazon put a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
They probably think they know what they're doing, but it's an American company that's been watching the NFL where the model works,
Yeah.
and we'll see how it goes for the NHL. I'll give it a try. Like
Yeah.
it's say you say it's on Thursday nights. I know the Habs play often on Thursday, so I'll probably just watch the live feed for the Habs. But if ever there's no games on that night, I'll for sure give it a try and see how
Yeah.
it looks,
And
and I'll come back
you
to you on
will
that
like
one.
it.
But
You will like it.
yeah, I don't think so. I
Guaranteed.
don't think so.
Mark Messier guaranteed. But yeah, needless to say, it's an option for people to, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
here we go. Albie's right on my computer setup. My fiance
Yep.
just left. I don't know what to do. Albie, you're making this difficult, Albie. All right. Sorry, let's continue to the Western Conference divisions
Yep.
here. Lots of teams, lots of movement here. I'm excited mostly because I live on the West Coast, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
and Eastern games. I can't really watch them like I used to because they start at 5 p.m. But 7:30 or 7:30 local time, I can watch these
Yep.
Western matchups. And which
Mm-hmm.
division would you like to start off with? I'm going to give you the choice.
Yep. I think we can start with the Central, but I think, like you said, it's a great thing that you'll be able to watch those later games for me,
Yeah,
especially if you're tuned into
for
the
you.
coast to coast broadcast.
Yeah, what a
So
coast!
you'll be able
What an
to
idea.
you'll be able to give us a little summary of what happens in the West. So I think we'll be able to cover the whole league. But yeah, let's start with Central. I'm
Yeah.
keeping Pacific last for Canadian teams.
Mm-hmm.
Give you a quick summary. Last year, Central, the teams that made the playoffs in order were the Stars, the Jets, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Nashville Predators. Teams out of the playoff picture, we had the Blues just missing out, the Wild, the formerly known Coyotes, aka the Utah.
Yetis.
I don't know
I
because
think it's going to be the
I don't.
Yetis.
One of the players apparently in the interview at the beginning of the season
Yeah,
said
Clayton.
it's for sure not going to be the Yetis.
Really?
Yeah, and that was my pick. But now I'm thinking maybe like Mountaineers or something. But
That's a brutal
um,
name, Ale. Come on.
yeah, we'll see.
The Predators
It won't be
against
the
the
Yeti.
Mountaineers.
Based on that player, it won't be the Yeti, which I'm very sad about. That's what I voted for. But let me digress. If I go back to the last team, bottom team of the division by far, the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
We'll do the last thing as last podcast. I'll ask you about which team do you think potentially will not make the playoffs this year,
Mm-hmm.
between Dallas, the Jets, the Avalanche, and the Predators. Do you think any of them will not be making the playoffs, and who would replace them instead?
So today I was thinking about this, and out of these four teams, I originally thought the Jets were not going to make the playoffs. Or sorry, see, I'm all mixed up with the Winnipeg Jets because they had a great season last year, but they were called the frauds by a random NHLer, and that happened in the playoffs. Now they've had quite a bit of departures. We'll list them in a bit, but like I don't know. I think my hot take is that Connor Hellebuck, former Vezina Trophy winner, he goes blind
Mm-hmm.
whenever the playoffs hit and it's a home game. He can't see the puck. No, he actually
Yeah.
can't see the puck, and I think it's because
Nope.
of the whiteout. It's those white T-shirts and the towels. They're flinging the towels around. He can't see a puck, and I honestly think like there's such a massive contrast, not only of the colors from regular to playoff season games, but the height of the moment, the atmosphere. It could like get to his head a bit, and for that reason,
Mm-hmm.
with their departures and stuff like that, and also the coach retiring, former coach Rick Bowness, I have the
Mm-hmm.
Winnipeg Jets out, and no other team from this division will make the playoffs. Sound the fucking Utah Yetis are making it to the playoffs. I've decided just right now because I was going to go just three and then five from the other team or division. No, the Stars, the Avalanche, the Predators, and in that the wild card spot, I honestly think the Utah Hockey Club will make the playoffs. What do you think?
That sounds pretty crazy to me, personally. Um, Two things I want to know. I want to mention. So yeah, so Utah kind of crazy. I just looked at the
Yeah,
the quick standings for last year, and the Jets had less than 200 goals allowed because of Hellebuck.
yeah,
Highest
199. Yeah,
highest rated goalie in the game. So they probably think that he'll have a dominant season next year. Um, you mentioned the departures. Monahan left, Toffoli, Schmidt, Dylan, Brossois. Not many additions. Instead of like they just replaced the backup with Kakinen.
that's it.
Um, but I don't think they'll be out of the playoffs. I think it'll be a little harder for them this year unless Hellebuck just has another like stellar season. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens with Ehlers,
Yeah.
if he's going to be traded or not, if he's going to resign with the team with an extension. We'll see what happens. Um, do you have your faith in Utah because of Sergachev, or is it something else?
No, no, I honestly think like they have a lot of up and coming stars on this team. We spoke about
Hmm.
Gunther before. I only
Yep.
found out about that man 1 week ago, but I've been hearing that he just has a lot of talent, potential 30 to 40 goal scorer. Who knows if that's going to
Hmm.
happen? But they got Clayton Keller. He's a beauty. Logan Cooley, very good up front. They got this Michelli guy. They got
Hmm.
Schmaltz. Like they have a serious front end. Yes, they bolstered up their defense with Sergachev, and I don't know, man. I just feel like the atmosphere in that arena is going to be nuts, and they actually get to play in the NHL this season. Not like
Exactly.
the fans could actually rest their back on the back of the seat, not a bench.
Yep.
I just feel like they're going to be so excited to play every single home game. Already at the
Hmm.
horrible arena last year, they had a very good
Yeah.
home record. So who knows, that could just improve, and the fact
Yep.
that the owner is so willing to pour a lot of money into just like the private jets and the food and the whole setup. I just feel like they might have a better, easier time
Hmm.
during their away games, staying at better hotels, not these Motel 8s like I heard they were staying at. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I don't know. I know it's their first year in the league, but I don't know. I'm just taking a flyer with this team, and I
Hmm.
think it could happen. I think it can
Yep.
happen.
That's a I think it's a hot take. A little thing I want to point out for the Utah Yetis. The Fanatics is actually not going to sell their jersey this year,
What?
right? At least at the beginning of the season. I think it's only releasing either later in the season or not at all. So like they'll all just be wearing a bunch of t-shirts. Like the arena will be filled with fans, but the fans will only be wearing t-shirts or
Really?
jerseys ordered from like Temu or something. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this year. I think it's a good hot take. I
Yeah.
think overall the division as a whole got weaker in a way.
Yes.
Like we had mentioned, the Jets losing a couple players, the Avalanche that finished first. They lost like a few key, like I wouldn't say key players actually, like Jack Johnson leaving, Cogliano, Sean Walker was traded, Trenin and Duhem left. They got back Eric Brankstrom. Sorry, I can't say S clearly.
It's okay.
Um, Good perspective, defenseman. I think the big question mark is if Landeskog and Nishushkin will come back
Yeah.
at any point in the season. I have more faith in Landeskog. I think it's trending in the right direction for him. Nishushkin will see if he's able to solve those problems. Um,
Off the sauce. Yeah.
but straight up off the sauce. But I think who will win this division will be the Stars. I think they
Mhm.
only got better. But let me know before we pass on fully to the Stars, like if you have anything to say about the Avalanche. If not, I'd like to hear your take on the Stars.
Yeah. First, before we go to the Stars, like I agree with your point. This whole division did get weaker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but on the Avalanche, I just feel like this team is very top heavy, and who knows in
Mm-hmm.
this league with the potential injuries that could happen to your guys like Makar and McKinnon,
Yeah.
and Rantanen. Who the hell knows what
Yeah.
this team could do? Um, and yeah, the Stars. I agree with you. These guys up front, they have Wyatt Johnston. Their first line: Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, and Rupe Hintz. Hintz and
Mm-hmm.
Robertson, they play very well together. We got to see if Hintz stays healthy. But yeah, this team,
Mm-hmm.
they're in their window. They got the old geezers, Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. These guys, I don't know what they're taking in Dallas right now, but they have like a second life in this team. So I could see
Yep.
them easily winning the division. Joe Pavelski, they're going to have to figure out a net front difference, though. This guy was a god
Yep.
at tipping pucks in. But
Yep.
yeah, I could see these guys doing very well. But my dark horse in this division are the Predators. They got my
Mm-hmm.
boy Steven Stamkos locked in, Marchessault,
Yep.
Shea, and Scott Wedgwood. Good backup, right? Is that a goalie?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. He just left Dallas. I was gonna mention it for them that Wedgwood, I think it's a big loss. Yes, they got Disman instead. But Wedgwood, every time he was called to play the games, he did a phenomenal job. So I think that him going to the Predators, like I think he'll just make it even harder for teams to score on them. Already the defensive team, but I'll let you continue your point.
Yeah, like I don't know. Predators, yes, they're older, but shout out to the Mr. Humpty Dumpty. What a fucking general manager he is. Great signings, and they
Yeah,
did a complete retool within a couple years, and they have like 5 draft picks in the top 2 rounds next year. So depending on where they're sitting, you know, come playoff time, these guys could offload some good draft picks and get some veterans who have been there before, or some young studs who don't want to be on their team. Like, who the hell knows what the Predators could do this season? I'm 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 pumped for the Predators and Utah in this division, and of course the Stars. Those are my. Oh crap! Yeah, it's 4. I need Avalanche in this.
yeah. I think it would make sense for Avalanche to come back based on the
Yeah.
teams you're mentioning.
You want to talk about the boring
Um,
teams in this division?
yeah, like I had the top four same as last year making the playoffs. First team that'll be out. I think I'll be tight between the Wild and the Blues.
Mm,
Um, Wild we can keep it short. That they're
Yeah.
still on the cap restriction with all those bought out contracts. They lost Goligoski, but they signed Trennan this year. That was the two major acquisitions done in the offseason. I think they'll have a pretty similar season. I think they'll be good. Fleury's confirmed final season, so I think that'll be fun to watch for them. But we'll see how they do on the ice. I think they'll stay the same and they'll miss the playoffs. Um, the team I want to talk about though, it's the Blues. I think they will maybe sniff the playoffs. Maybe that'll be the main competition for the Predators, a little bit like it was this year. They lost Kevin Aves, Scandella, Sammy Blaine, Vrana. They all left the team, but they brought in a couple of good players, Mathieu Joseph, Alex Texier. They brought in Faxa and Suter from Dallas. They brought actually the Joseph brothers because P.O. Joseph as well. We'll see if either or both of them make the team this year, but that's where the Balls of Steel GM got the offer sheets done, brought in Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway from the Edmonton Oilers, which is, I think, the main reason why I see them competing more this year. They missed the playoffs by a few points last year. The Predators got better. They got better. I think the main point for the Blues is if Binnington, if he's going to keep his calm the whole season.
Yeah.
I think that's the major point for them. If he loses his mind in a couple games, that might cost him. We'll see if he'll be able to keep his cool this year. Sorry,
Yeah.
um, but that's my biggest interrogation mark for that team.
Yeah, I completely agree. And lastly, the Blackhawks. We spoke about Nick Foligno being the captain this year. Look, they're still so young. Lots of guys who probably won't be there um, in a few years. You know what I mean? They're still moving a lot of parts, but they did get a lot of additions in Teravainen from the Hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
Bertuzzi, what an interesting sign. He said, "Screw an original six team, sound third one and third in 3 years." And
Yep,
TJ Brody, Martinez, honestly, like they have a good. Um,
Patty
they're
Maroon, Glenn. How can
Patty
you skip
Maroon.
over the goat?
He is the GOAT. 3 cups in 3 years, and some guys can't even sniff a playoff game. So yeah,
Yep.
and I don't know. Like I do see them competing a lot more this year, but I don't have them making the playoffs.
Yeah, no,
What do
same
you
thing for
think?
me. I think they'll be a bottom team. Definitely way better this year. Bedard's gonna have um, is gonna be surrounded by more players. Obviously, he'll be able to have
Yeah.
players to pass to play around with. Taylor Hall hopefully stays healthy this year, so I think it'll be a step up.
Mm.
But I think between them and Utah, I think it'll be a fight at the bottom place.
Yeah. So to recap this division, though, who are your 4 or 5 or 3 playoff teams in this division?
I'm having the same four teams, so I think
Okay.
the Stars will win the division. It'll be the Jets afterwards, and I think Colorado Preds will make the playoffs. Preds will be a fight with the Blues, so we'll see. But I'm going with the same four teams as last year. How about you?
I'm gonna swap out the Jets with the Utah Hockey Club and Stars, Avalanche, Predators. They will be in the playoffs.
Bold, bold.
So bold, bold, bold. Now the Pacific Division, the Canadian motherfucking teams. We got the
Yep.
last. Honestly, you're great at it. Who made the playoffs last year? And I want you to start with who do you think won't make the playoffs and who will?
Mm-hmm.
Any surprises?
Yeah. So last year, Canucks won the division, which was a surprise of itself.
Yeah.
Ahead of the Oilers, Kings and the Golden Knights were the last two teams to make the playoffs. So same thing as in the East. Sorry, four teams in each division made the playoffs. Um, who did not make the playoffs, and all of them were very very far from making the playoffs. We had the Calgary Flames, the Seattle Kraken, the Anaheim Ducks, and the San Jose Sharks. Um, do I believe any team will not make the playoffs this year? If I was to choose one, I'd choose the Kings. I still think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they'll have a very good battle with the Seattle Kraken, which made a lot of additions. Um, why I'm saying the Kraken. So they lost Schultz, Dumoulin, Tatar, Belmar, Yamamoto, and Chris Drieger, their goalie. Well, one of their goalies. They have multiple good goalies, but they added key players, I think, to this team. Brendan Montour, Chandler Stevenson, Mahura. I think is a good defenseman that could surprise, but a top defenseman, a good centerman that will be able to be there whenever Beniers is having issues. I think that was their biggest thing. They were relying a lot on their top players, especially their younger top players. But I think they'll give a fair fight to the Kings. Um, that loss, I think, what could have been causing issues, with Dubois. Lost Cam Talbot as well. He left, but they were able to get Comper back from Dubois. Hopefully, he'll be able to pick it back up. I don't think there was any like negative vibes coming from him. Edmondson coming in as well with Fogel and Tanner Janot. Um, so that's why I think it brings a competition between both, like a little closer than it was last year for these two teams.
Yeah.
So it'll be a toss up. Honestly, like just for the pod, I'll say the Kraken will actually go in the playoffs and the
Wow.
Kings will be out. What do you think?
Holy crap. That caught me off guard. I do think out of these teams, um, I think the Kings will make the playoffs again, even though they did lose Pierre-Luc Dubois. We talked a lot of crap about him, but he is a good body out there. Gets a decent amount of
Mm-hmm.
points.
Yeah.
Arvidsson, he's an absolute water bug. He joined Edmonton. I like that, but I do think they will just get in. They have an older core. They got Drew Doughty as a top defenseman, and Kopitar. These two guys, they're 1 year older. Their goalie situation is very questionable. So I do have them making the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Anaheim Ducks have
Mm.
that crazy, young, hungry season. A lot of question marks with the guy who showed off his new mullet, Trevor Zegras. I feel like
Yep.
this is a make or break year for this individual. Um, he has to show up, but they have a lot of young stars and good vets with Alex Killorn, who won a couple of Stanley Cups with Tampa Bay. He actually, funny enough, you were there with me. Horrible Stanley Cup parade slash meet and greet in
Yep.
Beaconsfield. I will never forget those 3 hours wasted. But yeah, man, out of those two teams, I think it'll be a fight. Shout out to California, hockey in California.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, let's talk about these Canadian teams, and then we'll talk about the Golden Knights last.
Yep. Let's do that. So I can start off with the team that won the division last year, the Canucks. Another year with a lot of changes.
Yeah,
Departure of Lindholm, Zadorov, one of the fan favorites, even though he was acquired only last year. Mihayev finally gone, I would say, because he was always a question mark there. Ian Cole, Sam Lafferty, and Casey DeSmith, like we mentioned before. But they got some pretty good players in return. Jake DeBrusk had I think, career season with Boston. He's coming in now in Vancouver. The West Island boy Daniel Sprong joined the
yes,
team.
sir.
Um, Danton Heinen, Derek Forbert, Vincent Darnay. I think it's they were able to replace the big guys they lost on D with Zadorov,
Yeah,
Ian Cole. They have Darnay forward. We'll see if it brings the same type of energy or same type of result on the ice. I do think they'll make the playoffs this year. Will it be as dominant? I don't think so. I think the Oilers will be back. Will come back as a king in that division. What do you think?
I agree. The Oilers will top this division. The Canucks. Shout out to my boy Daniel Sprong. Haven't spoken to that guy in years, but I know I just don't understand why teams haven't signed him long term. He's a great player. This guy could easily score 20 plus goals, especially if he's put on the right line. You know what I mean? I do see him playing with Elias Pettersson, who we need something big from this guy this year. As soon as he signed his $11 million ticket, he decided not to play hockey. He did not show up to the playoff
Exactly.
games, and the fan base were all over him, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of money for a guy to be an absolute pigeon and just not care. I feel like he needed to show up, but let's give him another chance, see what happens. And shout out to
Hmm.
Jake DeBrusque. He had a very interesting past with the Boston Bruins. At one point with Bruce Cassidy, he wanted to be traded because Bruce Cassidy is an absolute prick. I hear, but he decided to stay, and I don't know, man. I could see this team being second or third place.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think that the Edmonton Oilers are going to win the division.
Yeah,
You mentioned that you agree. You want to talk a bit about them?
yeah. The Edmonton Oilers, man, they are the top favorites heading into the season. Um, it is a bit sad that they've had a decent amount of departures, but
Hmm.
the one that really got me the most was Broberg. That offer sheet
Hmm.
from St. Louis Blues, that was crazy. Doug Armstrong, freaking, he's trolling Stan Bowman. Now Stan Bowman, it's like you reap what you sow. You know what happened back in the day, and this guy just wanted to shove it up his hoop, and Broberg, that's a great contract. He can't turn down 9 million over 2 years from the Blues,
Hmm.
and so like their defense is still very questionable, but they're so top heavy with the likes of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I spoke about Arvidsson. He's going to be a great player on the top two lines. Um, it is sad to see Evander Kane. I don't know what he's out with, but he's only
Yeah,
going to join the team around the holidays, I believe, maybe even January.
it might be later. They announced that it might be like 5 to 6 months.
Wow.
So they're hoping before the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls a Mark Stone and comes back and ready to battle
Yeah,
for the
he's going to
playoffs.
be completely fine. Absolutely no injuries all of a sudden. And yeah, the Oilers, I do see them going back to the Cup final, but their biggest challenge will be the Dallas Stars in the conference final if they make it there. So yeah, this team, everybody wants to play in Edmonton now. We got,
Yeah,
but who the hell knows with this guy Jeff Skinner played on the Buffalo Sabres. This poor guy's never been in a playoff game. Who knows?
yeah,
Who knows? Can this guy finally lace the skates up in the come May? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I know. Finally, play in the playoffs. I think that's a great point you bring. Like, we'll see if the curse will follow. I don't think it'll be that drastic, but we'll see if he like how he'll play and perform in the playoffs. I think he's a gamer. And to come back to last episode when I spoke about the trade, bringing in Matthew Savoy, where they traded, Ryan McLeod. I think this will be the season. We'll see if he starts with them. If he starts, like, I'm hoping that he starts on the top two lines, give him a chance, see how he performs with those top guys. But they already have a lot of players, so they might just want to give him more time to develop before he becomes a full time, like, terror in the NHL. I think, but yeah, I definitely see them winning the division here. And if I'm hopping over to the last team, we think we'll make the playoffs. Well, I personally think you'll think the same, or we'll see. But the Golden Knights,
yes,
the most hated um, team in the league at this point on the management aspect, that just flip over the team every year.
yeah.
I think they think it's like a deck of cards at the casino that after a night just swap the
Yo,
deck of
that's
cards.
actually hilarious. No,
So
honestly,
yeah,
yeah,
so every year they seem to swap half the team around. This year, Marcia, so we mentioned it, left. Martinez, Stevenson, Manta, Logan Thompson um, was traded as he was supposed to do a fan signing that day. So
wow,
he was still
yeah,
signing his cards, signing his pictures with the Golden Knights uniform, although he knew he was traded to the Capitals. William Carrier left, Paul Carter, Mario. So a lot of departures, but like I mentioned, a lot of arrivals as well,
yeah,
with Samsonov coming over from the Maple Leafs, um, Victor Olofsson, Alexander Holtz. So two guys that could develop to be pure snipers in the NHL. So we'll see if that happens. Brought in Schmid, which had a crazy season a couple years back with the Devils, but had a tougher year. So he ends up in Vegas. Zach Aston Reese and Hag. I think overall, lots of ins and out. Might have a tough beginning of season. We'll see. We'll see how Mark Stone does in a regular season. For the first time in the last 2 years, I think.
No, no, no. He for
Um,
the third year in a row, he will miss half the year and miraculously be healed by
for the
by
playoffs.
some sort of impersonator walking
Yep,
on the strip. Who the hell knows? Michael Jackson's gonna fucking do a thriller moonwalk, and holy crap, like Mark Stone, he's gonna be fine.
is
He's gonna
back.
be good to go. Um,
Yep.
who knows, man? Yeah, Golden Knights. I do see them making the playoffs um, every year, man. These guys find a way to do it, and most savage
Hmm.
team in the league, but they they, they have a winning recipe, so it's kind of crazy to hate on them in a way. So, but yeah, man, I want to talk
Yep.
about the Calgary Flames. Um, my home team here. They're obviously not making the playoffs. These guys are selling all of their top guys for good prospects and draft picks. I do think they have a few more pieces that could be traded off at the trade deadline. Nazem Kadri, depending on how the Colorado Avalanche do with their injuries and stuff like that, that would be crazy, a crazy reunion tour for Nazem Kadri. I'm sure they can afford it, cap circumvention, and we got the boy Huberto from Peppertown, Quebec. I think he does not want to play here. He doesn't like the conservatives out here. So yeah, man, I think they can get a lot of pieces for those two guys, and also who's that defenseman? I think it's Rasmus Anderson. He could
Hmm.
be a great second or third defenseman on a cup winning team. So
Yep.
Calgary Flames, with this whole water restriction here, they weren't even sure if they were going to skate on home ice because they weren't going to have enough water to pour on the surface. So it actually just ended the water, shortage a couple of days ago, and they
Yep.
got a home arena to play on. And yeah, dude, they're going to be crappy for another 3 years, but it's going to line up very well with their new arena that they're going to have. And who knows, I could be building
Hmm.
that or help build that.
Yeah. Who knows?
Shout out to the trades workers. And yeah, any word on the Flames from you?
Yeah. Before I hop on the Sharks, yeah. So the one thing you mentioned with Huberto, the first preseason game, like he seemed to be finding a connection with Manta. So maybe he was the sniper that he was looking for to dish out the pucks to, because he is the playmaker. Lamborghini, I think, will bring the energy. I think will bring the crowd in. Jake Bean taking a chance with him, and then Kevin Ball that they got in return for Markstrom, alongside their first round pick, like you mentioned. So they're stocking up on the good draft picks. I think they're not going to announce the rebuild yet, but like you said, if we see those big pieces being traded before the end of the season at the trade deadline, they might change the course of their upcoming season. It'll be exciting to watch. I think. Anyways, we'll see. Like you said, I think the city was hearing the feedback that the preseason was starting soon, so they had to cut the ban on water to make
Yeah,
sure that the ice was ready
yeah,
for
good
the
point.
boys to come back this year.
Yeah,
Um, and then that leaves us with one team, the San Jose Sharks.
San Jose.
Um, the worst team of the league last year. They won the lottery as they deserved, as being the worst team in the league. So they got Celebrini playing for them this year. They have a lot of prospects coming up. I know that Will Smith will be playing this year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if anyone else comes up. Adding to Foley, Wenberg, like Goodrow coming back with them. Honestly, a gift to Tampa, but
Yeah,
we won't talk about that. Uh, having received Jake Wallman as a gift from the Detroit Red Wings. Not sure what
that's
that trade
crazy.
was. And then D'Alandria, like rounding up the acquisitions. losing Hoffman, LeBanc, Barabanov, and Zadina, who went back to Europe. Um, yeah, like you mentioned, like Wallman getting a free Wallman and a pick for him will just solidify their D that was just non-existent last year. Adding the veteran to Foley to play with those kids coming up, Wenberg as well, Gaudreau bringing that leadership. I think overall they'll do way better this year. Um, contrary to you, I think they'll fight for the bottom with the Ducks, as they're both very young teams. Um, but I think it'll definitely be a better year this season. They won't only have 47 points at the end of the year. They'll score a lot more goals. We'll see how the goal situation goes. I think their biggest weakness is on defense.
Yeah,
But I think their future's bright. I think their future's bright.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Askarov, he's coming from Nashville Predators. He did not like Humpty Dumpty as a GM. He just said, "Get me the hell out of here." No, but rightfully so though, because UC Saros, this guy, absolute specimen, man rocket. He can play 60 games, and I don't think Askarov wanted that. And he signed a pretty team friendly deal with the Sharks. I just hope he's okay with getting a lot of shots and goals on him. But dude, I wouldn't complain if I was playing in California. Roll up to the game with a
I
couple
know.
flops. You're laughing, man.
I know.
Some
Exactly.
jorts.
Won't have to worry about the weather there for sure.
That's it. So your four
Um,
teams making the playoffs are
so the four teams making the playoffs, I'm keeping it the Canucks, the Oilers, the Golden Knights, and I think the Kraken will squeeze in this year. How about you?
I got the Oilers, the Canucks, Golden Knights, and I don't know. Anaheim Ducks. I just feel something with this team. They're going to come out of nowhere. They're going to be tanning on the beach, and they're going to be putting some pucks in the back of some nets. So, Flames, Kraken,
Yeah.
Sharks, and the Kings, who will be fighting against the Ducks for the last wildcard spot.
hmm
Yeah, man, I got the Ducks in.
Okay, that's good. So that concludes our predictions for the Western Conference this year.
Yeah.
That concludes pretty much our predictions for this current year. We'll be hopping on. You'll see in the upcoming week on a more talk more about what happens in the later weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's time to remind everyone about the buzzer beater bet.
Buzzer beater bet. All right, dude. You give
Um,
the rundown about what this bet
yep.
will mean to us and our fan base this year. Go ahead.
So the buzzer beater bet, like we mentioned in BBB, um, last week we had two random predictions. We put a tenner on each. They were both not available, so we actually did not do it. And I was talking to Glenn, and I wanted to do something special this year.
Yeah.
So buzzer beater bet, like the name entails, buzzer beater, last second. In basketball, it's the last hoop to usually provide the victory or time the game for the team.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do this year. So this week there's no actual bet being placed. Once the season starts, every episode for the upcoming week, we'll choose any team, any game of that week, and we will choose who do we think is gonna score the last goal of the game. Doesn't have to be a buzzer beater like in the NBA, but we'll have to choose which team scored the last goal.
Mm-hmm.
We will place a $5 bet every week. We'll show it on the screen and we'll keep track of our progress for the entire year. We'll see at the end, are we winners or are we losers? What do you think of that, Glenn?
I think that's a great idea. You did mention it doesn't have to be a buzzer beater like it is in basketball, but who the hell
Mm-hmm.
knows? A buzzer beater bet can still include an overtime winner, which low key is a
Exactly.
buzzer beater. So don't forget,
Exactly.
fans, it could be a 4-0 victory. Who scored the fourth goal? Is it Ovechkin with a freaking empty net goal because he just wants to beat Wayne Gretzky and then retire and happy and cross the sauces, pasta with ketchup? Who does that? Ovechkin does. But yeah, or can it be Connor McDavid scoring a crazy overtime highlight reel goal? We will
Mm-hmm.
see every single week. We'll pick one. Like Alain said, we'll put it up on the screen. I think each of us should have a bet each week.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the
Yeah.
Glenny BBB or the Alain BBB. We'll post
Yeah.
it, and whoever has the better record should get a tattoo of their favorite team's logo on their butt cheek.
I thought you were gonna say on the back of your back, and then because you were thinking you were gonna win, and you want to get a tattoo again.
That's true. I'll just get the
Um,
same Tampa tattoo just on my left shoulder.
exactly. It's whatever the newer like I might just be a Nashville Predators one because now your team is basically the same thing.
Shout out to Stamo.
Um, but yeah, so that's what's coming up for the buzzer beater bet. We'll let you guys know soon, and gals, sorry.
Yeah.
Obviously, like our community is very 50-50%. I'm checking the analytics.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the women out there. But this is what will come up for this year for the buzzer beater bet. Something we thought about, this upcoming
On a
weekend,
whim.
playing golf on a whim. But yeah, Glenn, I think this will probably conclude our second episode.
It's
Excuse
true.
me.
It's our second episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing before we let you guys go. All of those fans out there, don't forget to like, comment, share, shove it down a relative's face. We have a podcast now, and we're here to get our piece of the fucking pie. And
Yep.
don't forget, if you're one of the first 1,000 subscribers, you guys get a slightly better jersey than the horrible practice jerseys that the teams are coming out with from the Fanatics company.
Yep.
Subscribe, guys. We're gonna pick you. We're
Subscribe.
gonna pick one lucky subscriber, and yeah. Any
Yeah. Yeah. But
closing thoughts?
before we close it off, we're working hard to get the podcast on audio podcasts as well. So Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever other podcast platform you're using. We're working hard on that. And once again, this week, Glenn, like Mr. B said, once it's time to exit the podcast, we have to be hella fast. Bye.
Bye.